after work again, back out in the shed. I've been buying bits and pieces and doing a little bit of work on the other cars. I need to replace the hose on the MGB, and I repaired and have refitted the bumpers on the Land Rover. So that was a little bit of a distraction while I'm waiting for Riley things. And some of the things I've ordered or been out and bought was battery lugs and covers for those. I went and exchanged the battery I had originally, which was a 330 cranking amps, for a larger, I think it's 430, effectively the next size up battery. It's small enough to still fit, but it should give me a bit more oomph, I hope. I ordered some cable to make the main starter cables, and I'm waiting for the proper crimp lugs that go on the end here. And to attach those properly, I got something I've been wanting for a while. I just realized the corner's bashed in, but that's okay. Which is one of these hydraulic crimping tools. So this comes with different dies to fit the different crimps. So I'll use that to make up the battery cables that I need. This was cheap. This was less than 50 bucks. I don't know how long it's going to last, but it seems pretty robust, to be honest. So I think it works out cheaper to buy this and the cable and the bits and pieces you need than going somewhere and getting them to make up special cables for you. You can obviously buy cable in ready-made lengths, but they're never exactly right, and often they're not black. For some reason, Super Cheap Auto sells cables, but they're blue, which is just awful. I have no idea why they're blue. The other thing I had to do was I bought two of these, and I probably was supposed to buy the washers separately. It came with one washer, these red fiber washers, so I was missing one of them. Obviously, I could order those from the spares. I think they're 77p each, so they're not expensive. But of course, then I'd have to pay for the postage from the UK and also wait another couple of weeks. And I had a hard job finding them locally. It's not a common sort of size, but then I found out that just up the road from me in the next town up, it's like a 5-10 minute drive, there's a company that makes all of this stuff, and they make special gaskets and washers. So I rang them, and the guy said he didn't have any, but he could make me one. Just if I went up there, he'd just make one for me. And then I said, fine, I'll pop up today and have a look at those. And then he actually called me back and left a message saying he had found a box of 5,000 of them. And so when I pop up, he'd just give me a few. So he gave me a stack of them, 5 or 6 of them. So that's good. They're a little bit thinner than these ones, but I think they should still work fine. And the other thing when I was up there, I asked him about the material that they make this stuff from, this red fiber material, and if I could buy some of that separately, because this stuff as flat board is really useful for making fuel gauge sticks. So on the Austin 7, that's what they were originally made from before they had a fuel gauge. So I made one for my chummy when I had it, but I've never known where you actually get this red stuff from. So I asked him about that, and he had this just lying around on a table. He said, oh, you can just have that bit if you want. So he gave me this and the washers for free. I also found out that they can do CNC cutting, laser cutting, and water jet cutting, including of steel. So if I go back up there, they can cut bits and pieces for me, which may be useful when I'm actually building the body for the Brooklyns, because it's got a number of sort of steel brackets, and I think it might be good to model those up and have those cut so I can make the custom brackets that I need. But this will be good for cutting this into strips to make fuel tank indicator strips. I may do that on my Austin 7 Special. So that was good. What else? I also found I had a plate of 6mm steel, so I'm going to use that to make the pedals. I have copied the profile of the saloon pedal and stuck some masking tape on there and laser cut that, which gives you a really nice template. So I can use that to drill all the holes, and then I will use the cutting discs on the angle grinder to cut these out. Obviously my laser can't cut through steel like this. I could have these water jet or CNC cut, but doing a shape like that by hand's easy enough. So I'm going to work on those next, I think. Tonight, just a few small jobs. The last couple of nights I've made the pedal pads. These are just 6mm steel, and they are now actually welded to the pedal stalks. I drilled a hole in the middle, so the ends of the stalks are 1/2 inch diameter, so I drilled a smaller than 1/2 inch diameter hole all the way through the pedal, and then from the back drilled halfway through this, so to basically a little bit over 1/8 of an inch deep, a 1/2 inch hole, so that these would actually fit onto the end of the pedal shaft, and then I was able to weld them, plug weld through from the front, and then finish welding them around the back. And you can see I have curved them. That curve matches the curve on the factory pedals, which is these, and also the shape matches, of course. And in order to get that curve, I heated up the blanks with the oxyacetylene, and then discovered that the shoe last that I got for, I think it was $5 or $8 from the op shop, that is the exact right curve to get that shape. So I was able to hammer on that. I also managed to drop the hot piece of steel after I'd heated it up on the on the towel there. So that's been a little bit branded, but that worked really well. So the pedals are now pretty much in the correct sort of places, I think. And I've been looking a little bit at the floor and how that works. And there does need to be some other sort of support. There's actually another support that goes in along here somewhere, which is also something to do with where the firewall goes, I believe. So there does need to be something else under there to help support the floor. This was just a piece of wood I was using just to get some idea. I don't think this is actually thick enough. This is probably 3/4 of what it needs to be. So it needs to be thicker than that. But looking at pictures of other ones, the floor does come up to sort of the top of the shaft there. So somewhere in there. And you can see that doesn't leave a lot of height for your foot. But looking at it, it would actually be possible to put little heel wells in here, which is, I think I've seen that in some other cars. Just to have enough room. Luckily, for me, I don't actually need that much room. I think I've got enough room there with the floor actually in place. But it was a good suggestion somebody made to actually get the floor in there and make sure that I've got all that room, the room that I need. I also tweaked this bend a little bit to bring this pedal in a little bit closer to the column. Again, so I've got enough room there for my feet, but just to give me a little bit extra room here for the throttle pedal. And the throttle pedal is usually just a thin sort of strip type thing. This is an original one from a saloon car, so you can see they're usually pretty long and thin. So there should be plenty of room there for that. I also, again, this was a comment from somebody, have rotated around the dynamo housing so that the electrical connection is down the bottom, because I'd forgotten that with the radiator surround kind of sits sort of in there somewhere. So it does get in the way of the bottom of the radiator. It may not be so much of a problem for me because I'm probably just going to have a fake shell and a different radiator inside there. I'm thinking I will use a more modern core because I think I should then be able to get away with something more efficient but smaller. So saying that, I will want to disguise it as much as possible, so I will still want it to fit inside there, but you can see there isn't a lot of height to play with in here. So I think that's good. I need to make up, I will machine, at the moment I've just got washers in there, but I'm going to machine up proper spacers to go in here to get the correct spacing between the pedals and the shafts. So this shaft, which is what operates the brakes, obviously has to be straight. It pretty much sits itself in a straight position because you've got those clevis ends there and flat things. This can't really go sideways too much, it'll just bind up. So that gives me what the gap in here is that I need to just machine up a little spacer from, and I need to machine up I'll do a similar thing on this end that I did here, which is it's actually a bolt that I drilled through for the grease nipple, and I've got a washer on there to hold all of this nice and secure. I will do the same on there, and then I should be able to trim off the end of that shaft. Now I know exactly what length it needs to be. So that all looks pretty good. I dug out the guides for, this one's for the handbrake rod, and there's another one here which is for the handbrake cable. So I'll need to figure out exactly where those go, because obviously they're a fixed distance out. So you need to figure out the position. It's somewhere about there, but they'll only fit in one place. Obviously you don't want these to bend the brake cable, they're just there to stop it flapping around. So that's another thing I could do this weekend, maybe. Start making up a new radiator surround. I guess I could do that. And I did get some terminals, crimp terminals. Unfortunately, the place I got them from didn't read the instructions properly. I actually wanted 8mm holes and 10mm holes, but they only sent me the 8s. But luckily, there's enough there that you can make those holes bigger so they'll fit. But I don't know that I can actually make up the battery cable until I know where everything's going to go and where the firewall is and that kind of thing. I could make them up and leave them extra long for now, and then shorten things later, trim things up. But I'm going to have to decide, where do I put the battery cutout switch. The battery itself lives down in there, so the battery cable is going to have to be run sort of probably through that cross member. I may have to drill holes so it can go sort of through there and up along the chassis rails somehow. You can't mount anything under the car because there's actually a flat under tray. So I need to get some, I don't know what they would have made it from. Probably something like 3mm aluminium sheet I could use. That completely goes under the bottom of the car. So all of this is lined underneath here, right the way, not sure where it goes up to. Certainly that middle section is all lined, and I think quite a lot of it under here as well. Probably up to the firewall, so maybe right up to here. I've got pictures of original ones that I can look at. Again, it's difficult to know because they all get modified over the years, but that's something else I need to look at. That'll require drilling lots and lots of holes in the bottom of the chassis rails, I guess, which is actually going to be a little bit of a pain, but I'll worry about that when the time comes. I'm getting pretty close to being able to do the first startup of this. So my Magneto has now been repaired. Paul, who did that for me, did an amazing job by the looks of it. He also sent photographs of what it was like before and after, showing all the work that had to be done. And he also sent me films of it on the little test jig, including showing how good it is at producing a spark at low speed. So he can turn it over just by hand, and that's enough to get a good strong spark, which is how you can start these cars on the hand crank. So that is now on its way back up. I may see if I can put up some of the photos of what it looked like and how broken it was. It needed a lot of work, so it never would have worked the way it was. The coil was all open circuit, and all sorts of things in it were just broken. Had a very long life, I think was how he put it. And the other thing he mentioned to me is somebody has butchered the advanced retard lever, which is kind of on the side here somewhere. I can't remember off the top of my head how that works, but that's what links up the advanced retard on the Magneto here, goes down through a little linkage on here and gets controlled by, I think it's this one, the outer one. So that sets your advanced retard from the steering column. He did say that had been butchered, and I guess the stop on it had been removed so that it could go too far back. But he said it can. People do that so that they can move the lever further, but moving it further doesn't do anything because it's already in its most retarded state. So trying to pull it back further from that doesn't gain you anything. But sounds like that's a common problem with these things. So when I do set up the levers, I'll have to make sure there is actually some sort of stop there, mechanical stop, to ensure that it doesn't go past that fully retarded position for no reason. So I think that's kind of it at the moment. I also had a little bit of a clean up in here and just shuffled things around. That is standing up there is the chassis from the parts car I got, which I just had lying on the floor because it was always too heavy to lift up. But I was able to extend up my gantry crane and use the chain to actually get it into a vertical position, and then I was able to maneuver it up against the wall, and it's actually tied to the wall in about 8 places, I think, just so it doesn't come down if we have an earthquake. But definitely getting close to being able to try and fire the engine for the first time, just to see if it fires. Obviously I can't run it for long without a cooling system, but it should be enough to know that the thing should work. Well, that's what I'm hoping anyway.